Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the garage for another edition of Andy the Gabby Cabby. I'm actually in my own domain today instead of outside the court in London. I hope everyone is doing well. The thumbnail for this live stream is this one: English law betrayed, the remedy they fear. And me with a very frustrated, sideward-facing, twisty mouth. What I really should have labelled this live stream was, I've got the raging ump. I have really, because I've been seeing some things in the news over the last couple of days that really piss me off. It's like everyone's lost complete leave of their senses and they're trying even harder than ever to destroy this country and everything about it. There's two particular stories that I've seen in the news that are worthy. Now, I've seen content creators and other people bitching and moaning about news, reacting to it, but not offering solutions to the news. It's a waste of fucking time. I did it for a long time and it just doesn't work. And while you get politicians and everybody else talking about sovereign states and nation this, nation that, they're trying to protect something which is fundamentally broken. And one of the things that is being ignored fundamentally is England and English law, because at the end of the day, that could solve an awful lot of this crap that we're having to put up with at the moment. And it's annoying me increasingly that nobody's seeing it. Now, what I want to do, first of all, is play a video where Liz Truss was being interviewed by Bev Turner on GB News. It's about 3 minutes in length, and it's very interesting, actually, because it sets the scene to where we are, really, at least over the last 30 years. But I want to go back further than that. Have a listen.
Conservative, how frustrating is it for you to think that that election was lost because the British public didn't necessarily want Keir Starmer and Labour, but they were just so tired of 15 years of Conservatives and they felt that their lives weren't better when that election was held?
I think that's absolutely fair. The public were absolutely right. And this is what I tried to do in 2022, is escape from the doom loop of economic stagnation. And we've been there since the year 2000. Just remember, in the year 2000, the average Brit was roughly as rich as the average American. And you're here in America, Bev. People here are 50% better off now.
Yeah. The
average Brit is poorer than the average person in Mississippi, which is the poorest US state. And we've got it wrong for 30 years. Taxes are too high, the government's too big, the welfare state's too big. Our energy prices are sky high. We're closing down every serious industry in the country, from steel works to car factories. And we're at the end game of that. And frankly, the Conservatives did not change that. And we didn't, my fundamental critique after fighting all these battles for 10 years as a government minister is we didn't reverse the Tony Blair stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't reverse the Human Rights Act. We didn't reverse the Climate Change Act. We didn't reverse the Equality Act. We didn't reverse the Constitutional Reform Act that gave the judges all the power, and they're completely unaccountable as well now. And the public were absolutely right to give us a massive kicking.
But why do you think that was? Why was there not enough change? What I notice here is Trump has this clear ideology, America first. It underpins all of his decisions. I can't imagine a prime minister in the UK. And to be fair, you were the closest that came to that. You had a really clear vision.
I tried to do that. I tried to turn Britain around. I knew it was going in the wrong direction. But my problem was that I didn't have the support of enough people in the Conservative Party. That's the bottom line, that when the going got tough, when the Bank of England pointed the finger at me, when it was actually their fault, rather than backing me, the Conservative MPs created trouble. And the reason is, and it goes back to the Cameron era, the modernisers, people like Michael Gove, Francis Maude, all these people, they wanted to be the heir to Blair.
Yeah.
They didn't actually want to change any of this stuff. Do you remember that they called Blair the master?
Yeah.
And the problem is those people still held a lot of power in the Conservative Party, and they stopped.
Is Blair still running the country?
Well, I think he is the last Prime Minister that was actually running Britain. And what he did is he handed over huge amounts of power to the Bank of England, to the bureaucrats, to the judges, to the human rights lawyers. And that's why nobody has actually been able to do anything like deport illegal immigrants or stop the net zero nonsense, because those pieces of legislation are still there, and fundamentally no one's been prepared to take these people on. And I discovered this, I knew I was always fighting that battle when I was a minister, but when I got to number 10, I realised the way these people have power. They had connections in the mainstream media. They can basically make your life pretty much impossible.
So
I found that a very informing video, little interview there from Liz Truss, because what you're effectively getting is somebody that has been in a position of power and authority saying you get layer upon layer upon layer of law after law after law. There are backdoor quangos all over the place running the show, and what we've got in front of us is a complete charade. And the rot continues. And what you are seeing is a situation whereby all of our ancient laws and all of our ancient rights are being subverted and destroyed on a daily basis. None of the stuff that we need to know has been taught in school since the 1970s, at least. I have people email me saying they were taught it in the 50s and 60s, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. Now, I hear terms all the time like the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and all of this sort of thing, and sovereign state, and we don't have a constitution, or we have an unwritten constitution. It's all a load of old bollocks, and I'll go on camera and say it. United Kingdom is not a country, it's a unitary state. It never has been a country. If you look up conflicts of law in Halsbury's Laws of England, it actually tells you specifically that the United Kingdom is only a country for certain purposes, and you can read it up. It's a unitary state made up of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. No ifs, no buts. I've seen it with my own eyes. That is fact. And that is fact that all of these politicians want to try and hide from you. And with that goes the knowledge of all of our inalienable rights, our fundamental laws, our actual constitution, our English constitution. Before the Acts of Union, we were a common law union of countries. We share the same common law across England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland have their own system of law. That's why we can never be called a country in the real sense of the word. People need to wake the fuck up and see what's going on. Now, those that are screaming, but we don't have a constitution, Andy. Have a look at this. This is the journals of the House of Commons, right? And in these 3 pages, and they're dated in the 1700s, so this is way after the first Acts of Union, you can see mention the Constitution of England. Here's another one, the Constitution of England. And here's another one again, the Constitution of England, dated 1794. Now, what's very confusing with the English Constitution is the fact that it's over several documents, the Bill of Rights, the Act of Settlement, the Claim of Right, and so on and so on and so on. So it's very easy for people to tell me, we ain't got a constitution, probably because you don't bleeding well know. And because of the ignorance of this, and people coming on and saying, well, Andy, you don't know what you're talking about, or well, Andy, blah, blah, blah. It leads to the crap we're in. People are just ignorant, stick their head up their ass, and they're going to let their country fall by the wayside. I'm going to show you something very powerful, and then we'll go on to the stories that are pissing me off. Regions of England, right? This is what they're doing to England. 9 regions. Regionalisation. If you look at a regional assembly in Scotland, you look at a regional assembly in Wales and Northern Ireland, that's regionalisation as well. They do this to England, we've had it. What will happen, they will put their own system of administrative law over the whole lot, drag us back into the EU, kicking and screaming, make us have an EU constitution which we have to obey, which will rid us of all of our rights, and the EU could call itself a country because we all have the same system of law. Your common law rights, your common law constitution needs protecting at all costs. If you lose it, you lose everything else. I can't be any more clearer on that than I am being, and I hope you understand. Now, there's a couple of stories that have come out which really need dealing with, and it falls into this theme of you need to know your rights. The first one, and I'm indebted to Silver Fox Hot Takes for bringing this to my attention. He actually didn't personally. I saw his video. And it was about supposed kangaroo courts that Keir Starmer's government, or the judiciary, as we will call it, is suggesting that we have. Now, for the purpose they're suggesting them, I get it, but it could be misused and therefore should never be allowed to happen. So let's have a look at this first article here. Share the screen. Right, there we go. I mean, this rings alarm bells straight away, doesn't it? 36-minute trials and no jury. Starmer's fascist mass courts. Now, the last time I saw mass courts was in the 1940s in bloody Germany. You know, that's how down the rabbit hole this is going. Now, those charged with terrorism for supporting Palestine action will have no jury in trials, limited to 36 minutes each, with prison sentences up to 6 months. These are the plans for Starmer courts for mass trials of anti-genocide protesters. Now, you think what you like about that subject. Me personally, I'm only interested in the rule of law, the application equally to everybody. The plans are devised by Justice Michael Snow. He is the epitome of judicial prejudice. When Julian Assange appeared before Snow in the first hearing after being dragged from the embassy, Snow called Assange a narcissist, even though Assange had said nothing but to confirm his name and no evidence had been led. Snow has now decreed that those 2,000 people charged under Section 13 of the Terrorism Act with supporting Palestine action will be tried in batches of 5 at the rate of 10 people a day, giving 36 court minutes for each defendant. This is a farce, a spectacle of mass show trial. The 36 minutes includes both prosecution and defence cases and cross-examination. At a scheduling hearing on Wednesday, one of the accused, 72-year-old Deborah Wild, objected that these trials would be far too short to present a proper defence. Snow snapped back. I'm satisfied that the time is sufficient. I'm not going to give more time. Your only remedy is the High Court. As I'm sure Snow realises, ordinary people cannot afford to go to the High Court, and we'll come to that in a little while. The worrying thing is that the trials will be held before judges, including the appalling Snow, with no jury. Here is the relevant part of Section 13 of the Terrorism Act. So that details the justification for suggesting what they're suggesting right there. You can read that at your leisure any time. Perhaps the most astonishing thing about this draconian legislation is that arousing suspicion is actually the offence. So if they suspect you're guilty, then you've had it. It does not matter if the suspicion turns out to be well-grounded or not. The suspicion could be totally wrong, but if you aroused a suspicion on reasonable grounds in a policeman's head, you're guilty. It's an offence of strict liability. Your intent is not considered. You may have been most concerned to stop a genocide or to oppose the destruction of free speech. Judge Snow and his ilk will not care. They only want to know if some half-educated cop suspected you of being a member of a terrorist organisation. There's no jury to whom you can explain your actions and which would highly likely to sympathise. I've seen it as an offence of strict liability. likened to possession of a Class A drug. But actually, it isn't. The correct analogy would be a crime where the offence was arousing a suspicion you possessed it, whether you actually had it or not. The experience of watching 2,000 upstanding citizens, most of them elderly and many of them infirm, hustled through this slaughterhouse queue of mass justice and into prison with little opportunity to defend themselves will be a defining moment in the UK's headlong slide into fascism. The UK's headlong slide into fascism, the unitary state. The best available way to fight this ridiculously unjust process, which has been directly opposed by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, by Amnesty International, and by the Liberty, is through the legal challenge to an absurd and oppressive law. This is being done in both England and Scotland, which are separate jurisdictions. I am the petitioner in the Scottish case. I think Scotland, and somebody like Graham will have to correct me if I'm wrong, they have access to, our rights through the claim of right. There are precedents for different decisions in different jurisdictions. The Scottish courts found Boris Johnson proposition of Parliament illegal, the English courts legal. Ultimately, the Supreme Court decided in favour of the Scottish courts, who have a different system of law. It's also possible that Palestine Action should simply operate legally in one jurisdiction and not the other. The law is frequently different in the two countries. The rationale of the legal case is explained here. So they're treating England and Scotland as different countries in this explanation. And there's a bit there about we desperately need funds. Well, there you go, folks. That is the way the UK, the country that everybody calls it as when it actually isn't, is sliding. Now, let's go back to the Constitution, the English Constitution. Everybody says we don't have one, despite the fact on the 16th of October, I sat in a courtroom listening to people talking about the English Constitution. Any correction? No. Right, let's have a look at this, shall we? And let's have this out. The English Bill of Rights stops this, because under the English Bill of Rights, you have the right to a jury, the right of habeas corpus, the right to remain silent, the right to assert English ancient laws and customs. The pretended power of dispensing with laws is illegal. So by saying you can't have a jury, it's illegal because it's against your rights under the Bill of Rights. Commissioners for ecclesiastical causes and all other commissions and courts of like nature are illegal and promiscuous. So setting up 36 minutes throw courts, kangaroo courts, it's illegal. Also look at the observance of due process of law, 1368. And I've got that right in front of me here. In 1368, the Parliament of England passed the observance of due process of law, 1368. It is assented and accorded for the good governance of the commons, that no man be put to answer without precedent before justice or matter of record, or by due process and writ, original according to the old law of the land. And if anything from henceforth be done to the contrary, it shall be void in law and holden to error. And finally, the subjects of the realms of England have the right to defend themselves. Now, the reason I'm so mad about this is because, all right, they're going at the free plasticine mob, but this can be misused and applied to just about any case. I could have the door smashed in now for talking about it, and I could be put in front of a kangaroo 36-minute court. This is where this is going. Remember, we have a constitution, and they are ignoring it, usurping it, trying to destroy it every damn minute of every day. I don't know about you, I've just about had a gutful of it. I really have. And where you get people online, all right, they've got the best intentions saying, Great Britain, we need to be great again, United Kingdom. I don't know whether they're doing it because they don't know, or they're doing it because they know and steering the ship in the same old direction. But it's getting bloody tiresome. It really is. Now, let's have a look at another thing, shall we? We've had it, and we've had content creators and news and everything losing their shit over the fact that Aston Villa Football Club has decided to ban people of a certain sector of society, we will call it, to be as diplomatic as possible. And everyone's kicked off everywhere. There's been a Muslim MP that has come out and endorsed it. Oh, yeah, no problem. And everyone's losing their collective minds. Well, Jeremy Corbyn came out and said this: I'm appalled by the vile racist attacks on my independent colleagues. That's their fallback position, isn't it? Vile racist attacks. Jeremy, shut up. Ayub Khan has been subject to disgusting smears by MPs and journalists who have willfully misrepresented his views in order to stoke anger and division. Well, I'm going to be one of them in just a minute, and you can take it as you find it. Journalists have called for Zahra Sultana to be deported, a despicable racist attack on an elected member of parliament. The decision to prohibit away supporters from attending a match against Aston Villa was made through the lens of public safety. That is what most people would hope and expect. I would if it was true, but it isn't. And explains why this decision has public support. My independent colleagues in Parliament, Ayub, Zahra, Iqbal, Shokat and Adnan, diligently represent people of all faiths and none in their communities. We believe in human rights for all, and we will never stop campaigning for a more equal, peaceful world. That's Jeremy Corbyn, who has been an MP for what, 40 years? Something like that, give or take. Have a listen to this.
I'm proud of the achievements of the Muslims of this country from 97. In 1997, we got our first Muslim MP. In 2001, we had 2 Muslim MPs. In 2005, we had 4 Muslim MPs. Inshallah, in 2009-10, we'll have 8 Muslim MPs. In 2014, we'll have 16 Muslim MPs. At this rate, the whole Parliament will be Muslim. But just to say, in case there are journalists here today, that is not my objective. But you know, we've got 4 Muslim MPs, there should be 20 Muslim MPs in Parliament, and inshallah very shortly we'll see that. And I'm confident, as Britain's first Muslim minister, that inshallah in the next 30 years or so, we'll see a Prime Minister in this country who happens to share my faith.
Inshallah means God willing, as far as I know. And you heard what he said? That video clip I just played you is nearly 20 years old. Now, at this stage, I go on about the Constitution, and one thing I want to make abundantly clear before I get any shit thrown at me is nowhere in the Constitution does it mention anything about race whatsoever. So when you see all of this slur going here, slur going there, race there, it's that, phobic that, it's a load of bullshit, because there is no mention of it in the English Constitution anywhere. It's all division. There shouldn't be any Muslim MPs. If we go by the Constitution, there shouldn't be. There was acts and there was laws passed to protect the state from outside influence, to prevent the stuff we're seeing going out on our streets. England's been turned into a shithole in places. Large parts of it, absolutely beautiful still, but it has been turned into an absolute crap pile because they have willfully subverted, destroyed, withheld and ignored the Constitution, which was there to protect us. And you get all the politicians going, nah. Please, spare me. I've had enough of it. I don't know if you have. I want to show you this. And I hope I'm trying to contain my foul mouth, but you can probably get the impression I'm not happy with all this going on. Right. Why is Aston Villa embroiled in the Maccabi Tel Aviv situation right now? There are a lot of complex factors. One not discussed so far is Aston Villa Football Club. AVFHO official held an event at Villa Park in Community Spirit and Neighbourhood Spirit on the 21st of March this year. It was an iftar to celebrate the end of Ramadan, where the Adhan, the Muslim call to prayer, was called. Nazil Sawaz is a Coptic Orthodox Christian. You'll have to apologise if I get any of these pronunciations incorrect. He's also the chairman of Aston Villa. I would have hoped that he would have known what the Adhan meant. You see, where the Adhan is called, it's traditionally seen as a way of declaring that space as a place of worship or a spiritual claim on that ground, if you will. Islamists now see Villa Park as their own. It's how Islam works. I'm not being anti any individual. I am being anti-Islam, which is a political ideology wrapped up in a religion, and whose name means subjugation and submission. And here we are, radical Islamist MPs don't want Jews on their land. They need to be reminded this is not their land. It's a great football club that stood against fascism in its history. You're right, it's not their land. It's England, and it's a football club in England. I just want to read something to you one more time. So they're saying that this land is ours, right? No foreign prince, person, prelate, state, or potentate have or ought to have any jurisdiction, power, superiority, preeminence, or authority, ecclesiastical or spiritual within this realm. So help me God. So claiming land in England as their own is illegal. It's about as illegal as it gets. And again, this is being ignored. Sorry? And what about when I say there shouldn't be any, MPs of that faith? Have a look at this. Now, last night, the term Muslim MP was trending on Twitter. This is what I put. Listen, let's have this right. The Act of Settlement contained a line which barred anything other than English MPs from Parliament. This is in that act to protect us from the kind of influence we're seeing now. But here's the problem. The British Nationality Act 1948, Schedule 4, contained a repeal which removed this protection. And then we wonder why we have the problem we do now. Wake up, for fuck's sake. Now, do you understand what I've just read to you? So, the Act of Settlement, there was a particular line in there that basically said you have to be born of English parents. Otherwise, you can't be an MP and various other things. Now, the British Nationality Act 1948, which represents the biggest constitutional treason that you can imagine over the last couple of 100 years, has a schedule of repealments, one of which removed that line from the Act of Settlement. If it didn't, then Sonny Jim, who was justifying this ban from the football club, couldn't be anywhere near Parliament. He was born in Pakistan, of Pakistani parents. Again, this isn't about race. This is about the rule of law to protect England. That actual thing in the Act of Settlement was there to protect us against the Dutch, actually. But it applies in the same fashion. That is, if it hadn't been repealed. So you see, again, looking at that thing to do with regionalisation, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, there's a comment here that's interesting. As you know, I went up to court to witness the appeal where they're trying to get Graham Moore's election petition hearing thrown out, which is in a couple of weeks. After watching this for a short while, it's pretty straightforward to ignore the Gabby Cabby. Oh, believe me, it isn't. Because it's pretty misleading stuff. The issue appears to be grumbling because Labour lost a by-election. I don't support Labour, mister. I'm sure that's quite apparent by now. It was close, but Andy, who prefers to tell lies if it meets his objectives, prove I'm lying, was bemoaning the fact that a recount was denied. I never said that. When there definitely was a recount where Sarah Pochin's majority went from 4 to 6. As for electoral fraud, it's rife, always the left, and worse in Muslim enclaves. I would love to see it minimised and properly punished, but I'm guessing that's not very truthful. Andy wouldn't like that at all. I see several problems with that post, and there's a whole world of ignorance that goes with it as well. So let's walk this back, shall we? Yes, there was a thing in Runcorn and Helsby, a by-election. Yes, there was a recount. Yes, Sarah Pochin won by 6 votes. Was there a problem? Yes, there was. Graham Moore got 50 votes. And he personally saw, as did other witnesses, more. So you have to wonder what other impropriety went on. At the end of the day, we have to have sovereignty. If we don't have sovereignty, how can we lend that sovereignty to a parliament when they're selected by the returning officer rather than elected? If there was impropriety at Runcorn and Helsby, then what's to say there wasn't impropriety anywhere else? Anyone under the Representation of the People Act has a right, if they've voted in or stood in an election, to call an election petition, which is exactly what Graham did, because 10 years ago he stood in another election and also got 50 votes. 1,000,000 to 1 are the odds on that, officially told to us by the Royal College of Statisticians. I don't lie. Anything I say is backed up with hard, cold fact. Now, because of this and witness testimony and the actions of the returning officer, to name a few, he could have ordered a full ballot recount at any time. Why didn't he? We're in the position we're in now, and it's taxpayers' money paying for this. It wasn't a case of, oh, I lost, blah, 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 blah. He was never going to win the thing. It doesn't matter whether Labour won or lost. It's the sanctity, it's the purity of our elections. And again, right, I'll read the line to you out of our Bill of Rights. The right to free elections. The election of members of Parliament ought to be free. Well, if we're not sure whether they're fairly and honestly being elected by members of the public or not, they're not free. And that's what we need to find out. That's what it's all about. What we fully expect is Sarah Pochin to win by a landslide, because that's how pissed off everybody is with the establishment. But we need to get to that trial in Chester. We need justice. Justice needs to be seen to be done. So there's far more to this than your petty comment. Justice doesn't come cheap either. I mean, I can't believe the progress this GoFundMe has made. I want to show you this. And there's been donations offline as well. Nearly 30 grand. Even though Graham won and got his hearing in November, they've done him for 25 grand in costs. There's going to be more costs as a result of what happened on the 16th. And there's going to be more costs after that. This is the thing. Normal people, as we discussed earlier with my initial thing, don't have access to justice. That's something. They try and price you out the game, driving you through funnels and places you don't want to see. So again, we need free and fair elections. Going to go through the comments. There's a few. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share this, because, you know, people need to know all is not lost if people wake up and realise what our rights actually are. We are being fooled. We are being lied to by a state, by a system, by a unitary state that wants you where you are, kept, done. Wake up, read, learn, watch, listen, and then we can save ourselves. Right, comments. Draw breath, Andy, calm down. Let's just have a quick look at this couple of things. Right, let's see what everyone's got to say. So, Dean James, I see Starmer is trying to kangaroo courts. And as I've demonstrated, bloody legal. You can't have them. We don't want them. Stick them where the sun don't shine. Simple as that. If anybody ends up in that unfortunate situation where you get a knock on the door from the old Bill, shut up. Don't say anything, because you have the right to remain silent. And if they try all that, you don't have the right to remain silent, bollocks. Throw habeas corpus straight at them. I watch you and a couple of others. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. And again, everybody, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. And I apologise for my rant. It happens when I get passionate. Andy, I'm fed up with all the fake news on social media. So many AI videos with BS. I was watching some earlier because I do martial arts, as I've said before, and I was fascinated by these AI Bruce Lee videos where he was teaching different people, even though he's been dead for donkey's years. It was quite fascinating. Absolutely, Mick, you've got it bang on the button. The English Constitution is the solution. No ifs, no buts. People who are trying to change things, parties who are trying to change things, need to be talking to the right people. Otherwise, ain't going to happen. It's the same cycle of shit that we've had for years. The rule of law is ignored in favour of certain narratives. Bang on. Absolutely bang on. You know, people in this chat are awake. You know, hi all, share as much as you can. So many have no idea we're right. So sad, such a worry. Absolutely, Guna Mum. Absolutely. And thank you for that. That enforces it. You know, on the 16th, 90 people turned up. They had to open another court. They were overwhelmed. Hi, Andy. Hope you're well. Love from Scotland. Same to you, Murray. Good to see you in the chat. Best wishes. Oh, wow. Good evening from America. Much love to you, fellow patriots. Random Yank. Wonderful. Good to see you. That's the point as well. You know, some of the original settlers in the United States were English. They wanted to live as English with an English constitution. And then the British state come over and attacked. Where do you think the United States got the basis of their constitution they hold so dear? The English. So what's gone so wrong here? Where's our English Parliament? Irresistible Grace Designs. Lower taxes, you'll get more money because people will be able to set up shop and employ. Exactly. We'll have more money to put into the economy. Instead, you get these fascist communist what's-its trying to nickel our hard-earned. It's all deliberate. Hasn't she worked it out yet? Yeah, by design. And the more people that really work out what is going on, the more chance we got to do anything about it. Evening all from the Midlands. Minnie Ward, good to see you. Thank you for joining the chat and listening to me rant and rave. No coal and expensive oil made manufacturing go to low-wage countries overseas. 1979, 1981, Reaganomics, Thatcherism until now, 2025. Elites don't pay taxes, only blue-collar tax is coming in. Absolutely. I know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. This has been going on for years. I mean, you look at that video that I did with Liz Truss at the beginning, and that's going back to Blair era, what she's talking about. So nearly 30 years. Easy to say after the event. Easy to say, easy to fix if you're willing. By the way, I wrote to Liz Truss 3 times, RE our English law, no reply. When she was my MP, she still hasn't learnt. We do have one. I do wonder if anybody that writes to the British or anybody that tries to go to the British about the English, they're told to ignore, because they know full well what I demonstrated tonight, that they're in a world of shit if this ever came bubbling back to the surface. Gooner mum, lots of these MPs, in fact, 99% aren't even English. They've taken over Westminster. Look up their parents and ancestors. Their own descendants could be English, but they'll want power, so want to destroy England. That's what I do. The regionalisation of England needs removing. We need our counties and shires, we need self-governance, and we need the English common law, the English rights, our ancient rights and freedoms restored to us. That's the only way out of this mess. And by the claim of right, Scotland gets out of crap as well. They don't want you to know it. Random yank, they do that here too. Know your constitution and hold them to it. It's the law of the land, and they must abide by it to govern, full stop. I'm aware of a case. I can't tell you what it is because it would prejudice it, but all I can tell you, and I have clearance to tell you, is that the government, yes, it's another one against the government, used the Bill of Rights as part of their defence. So if you acknowledge part of the Bill of Rights, that livens up all of it. And I sat in court on the 16th and I heard all about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Act of Settlement, everything else. It's all there, but it's been hidden from people because they know it can destroy them. The head of the snake, Charlie boy, is the problem. Always is. And what do you do when you get rid of that? Handy Andy, I've had my doubts about the electoral process for some time now, Andy. This just reinforces my doubts. Yeah, what they do, or what the problem is in the case of Runcorn and Helsby and probably everywhere else, the con is in the bundles, not the papers. So you go and mark off your paper with a pen, throw it in. What they do, they count them and then they clip them off in bundles of 50. So then when they do a final count, it's 50, 100, 152. But what happens if you get 50 votes to the Tories, they can put a Labour one there and a Labour one there. So when they do a bundle count, it looks like 50 Labour ones instead of 50 Tory ones. That's where the fraud is. So this returning officer in Runcorn and Helsby, anytime he liked, could have ordered a full independent or individual ballot recount. He never did. Instead, using your hard-earned council tax money, they've gone through all of this appeal ridiculousness. So hopefully Graham's done enough. And, you know, we'll get the petition hearing in Chester in a couple of weeks. The evidence will be shown and hopefully history will be made. This isn't about one man losing an election. This is about the integrity and honesty of our election processes. That's it. Because at the end of the day, if we can't guarantee that they're elected, how can we convince everybody else to come out and vote and make a difference? There you go. That comment sums it up. Really does. Jane, hello, it's principle, period. And more importantly, people who are English need to learn about the real problems, like our rights being taken away from us instead of buying into worldwide political distraction. Absolutely. There's so many things in there which are still relevant, still live, and still legal today, which are there to protect us, and they're being ignored. Look at the active exchange of information, because everyone has the right to remain silent, but the Exchange of Information Act does allow you to ask questions. Okay, that's an interesting one. 222 quid, very interesting number, maybe. The government are big on camera use. Why not have cameras in the vote counting rooms? Yeah, that's a very valid idea, or more people. Andy, I'm seriously worried. Hello, Danny. Good to see you. That they'll attach digital ID with the ability to vote at the next general election. No digital ID, no vote. That will work heavily in Starmer's favour. Yeah, it will. And also, you make a valid point, Danny, because digital ID, people say they don't have a problem with digital ID. After all, you know, here I am, here's the proof. They will link everything to it. Your vote, your healthcare, your school, your utility bills, your internet. your car, your tax, your wages, your banking. You look at something like the United Arab Emirates, for example. They have a card there, and you literally can't be a functioning member of society without one. It really is something to behold. And again, the English Bill of Rights, you have a right to earn a living. You have a right to a private life. You have a right to exist. There's so much. And, you know, they're pissing all over all of it. The latest iOS update will create a government ID app that you haven't asked for. Yeah, Paz had that. He uninstalled it, and then it got put back on again in another update. You see what is happening? You see what's happening? It's crazy. Anyway, let's have another look at this. See how we're doing. I'll do a refresh of the screen. 29,096 quid. I know there's been offline donations as well. We got 700 people nearly watching. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, I know there's offline donations as well. So we're well over £30,000 now. They're hammering him for costs. He had to pay, I think, 5,000 to get this rolling in the first place, and then they got him for another 26,000. That was down from the 500,000 they tried to bundle on him. It's getting ridiculous. And then they tried to do him for another 90 grand's worth of costs after what happened on the 16th. So it's not over till it's over. We need to have English people ready to take the place of the ones we remove from positions of power. The caveat to that, we have to do it peacefully, legally, through legal means, through the ballot. Big love, Andy. Didn't you hear the song, Remember Who You Are? Absolutely, absolutely. Another idea for free and fair elections. All elections get counted, then recounted by an independent group. If the numbers match, no worries. They should be counted correctly anyway, but that's the point. The returning officer could have ordered a full independent ballot recount. Why didn't he? Digital Bill of Rights needs to protect us in a digital age. Well, the English Constitution Society actually made a draft Digital Bill of Rights, didn't they? Which is about somewhere. Just years after the Magna Carta was signed, they started to revise it, water it down. And when the government first wrote down explaining your rights and freedoms was the first start. Some of this stuff that was made, words like in perpetuity and forever were used, which means they can never be changed. You know, that's again where the big con is. And I'm going by what I've read, what I've seen, what I've learned, what I've been told. You know, I never say anything unless I can back it up with proof. You watch the Hunger Games, Star Wars, The Matrix, Divergent, V for Vendetta, and sided with the resistance. When it's fiction, you understand, yet you refuse to see it when it's reality you live in. Too true, Tony. Good to see you. Is it true they started labelling supermarket? Yeah, I've seen that, and I've seen it with my own eyes as well, where I've bought a sandwich from the shop. You can see it on some of them. Hi, Andy. Just tried to sign up to some site. They wanted ID and facial recognition. They can get lost. I know there's a certain political party that's trying to pull that stunt when you try and sign up and donate, who will remain nameless. There's a risk of extremists winning seats at the next general election. Robert Jenrick has warned, boy, this guy's speaking a lot of truths, but always, he doesn't impress me because these truths he could have spoke when the Tories were in power. And now he's doing it this side of the fence. Doesn't impress me one iota. None of them do. It's a joke. Anyway, folks, standards are plummeted. They can't be bothered to put a copper outside the polling stations now. I know. It's complete breakdown. What idiots claim there's no English Bill of Rights? I just say, so the glorious revolution never happened. You got it. You sum it up. Absolutely spot on. And I showed the proof earlier on in this live stream. I'm not going to do it again. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Apologise if I got a bit ranty in places. It needs doing because people just ain't getting it. The Constitution is the solution. It always was. We need to learn what our rights are. These people need to be peacefully held to account. And can we have our country back, please? Because you made a complete and utter mess of it. That's all I've got to say. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy your weekend. Not sure where I'll be about tomorrow because I'm going to Southampton first thing. I might just chill tomorrow. I don't know yet. So have a good one. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.